Hi everyone, welcome back to Drone Novice. Today we'll attach our receiver to our flight controller, which is the last of the electronics that we'll have to solder. So this is our receiver. By the end of this video, we should have our receiver soldered to our controller as well as placed on top of it so that all the electronics are tidied, such as the video transmitter and the receiver. In addition, we'll put our antennas for the receiver in the 3D printed mount over here in the back so that the antennas aren't dangling loosely. First, we'll start out by removing our 3D printed mount and just placing it to the side, as well as moving the video transmitter a little bit over. Then you can attach the connector that comes with the receiver. Our receiver is the Frsky r-xsr, which is meant for Frsky controllers and all controllers that transmitters that use the S bus. And you can see that in our harness here we have 5 wires: black, red, yellow, green, and white. However, we don't need the white and the yellow wires for now, because the white wire is meant to connect other external receivers to this receiver to use for extra security, but we don't really need that. And the yellow wire is for telemetry, which sends a signal back to the transmitter. So since we don't need that, we can snip them off. But make sure not to snip it too short, since you might want to use it later. And now we have our black, red, and green wires. So our black wire is, of course, the ground wire, as it is in all standard wiring. And our red wire is our 5-volt wire. And lastly, our green wire is the S-bus wire, which is what receives the signals. It sends the signal to the flight controller of what the transmitter is telling it to do. So we can sort of assume that our receiver is going to be here right on top of the flight controller, and then adjust the wiring accordingly until you have a decent amount of wire that you can use. So snip about maybe a little less than half of the wire off, and for all 3 wires, and then we can start soldering them. So now that we've snipped them off, we can imagine our receiver to be in the 3D printed mount over here and put them in the according spots. So we'll refer to this chip that comes with our flight controller ESC stack, and you can see on the left it says ground, 5-volt, PPM, and S bus. So out of those 4 pins, we'll only need the ground, 5-volt, and S bus ports, and they'll go to the black, the red, and the green wires respectively. So we can first take off a little of the silicone with our nails. And twist them so that the wires aren't just loosely spread out when you solder them. And if they're a bit too long, since these pads are pretty small, you can snip a little bit off until it seems like a good amount of wire that you have space to solder. And twist them again if they get really strandy. And now we'll prepare our pads. So you can remember that we're using the ground, 5-volt, and S bus pads. So here, just tin the pads really quickly. until you get a nice shiny coating. And once you do that, you can tin the wires of the receiver and place them respectively here. So the ground goes to the black, 5-volt goes to red, and green goes to S bus. So you can use our tweezers for this, since these are pretty small wires. So now that we've soldered our receiver to the flight controller, we can mount it along with our video transmitter. So you can mount the video transmitter so that the antenna of the its antenna is facing back, and I have to move things around, but that's how it'll go, as well as the receiver will be mounted this way, so that the pins are facing to the left. And just push it on top of the flight controller slightly. And you notice that like the video transmitter has like a tendency to want to go upwards. So that's why we have a zip tie. And there's even a special slot for the zip tie here on the sides. So carefully make sure that the zip tie is in its appropriate place. And then you can tie it down. And since we have this much extra zip tie, we can just snip that off. And now, last part is the antennas. So you know that we have these antenna holes here, which is where the antennas are supposed to go through. So we can place them in here as such. And you don't want them to be like dangling out loosely like this. So that's why we have these tubes. But since they're too long, we can cut them so that to an appropriate length. And now we can be confident that they won't be hit by propellers. So now we're done mounting our receiver and our video transmitter to our 3D printed mount. So thanks for watching this video, and we hope to see you next time.